do it.
Hey everyone, welcome to the live stream, which I'm tentatively calling Gil's Top 3, because I pick out my 3 favorite, well, I don't want to say favorite, because what if we talk about something horrible that happened? And I'm like, my favorite thing is when this awful thing happened. So it's the 3 movie or TV topics. Often there'll be news stories that caught my attention for the week. We're going to talk about them. If you saw the thumbnail, you already have an idea what we're going to talk about. I'm Gil. You know, if you're new to the channel and you've just heard my voice in some of these videos, here's the face behind One Take. And that's the other face behind One Take. That's my little brother,
Daniel.
And what do you do around here?
I didn't know you'd be asking me questions.
I recently wrote down who's going to take over One Take. I wrote Daniel's name and I underlined it. Or did I cross it out? I don't know. Well, let's start off with an easy one, Dale. I'm going to give you a softball to start. Mario. This movie is on its way to making $1 billion. And you're like, is that a big deal? I don't know. For all you know, every movie makes $1 billion.
How much did Avatar make?
The first one?
Yeah.
I don't know. But it made over $1 billion. And if Mario makes over $1 billion, it'll be the 4th pandemic era movie to do that. Can you try and guess what the other 3 are?
If it makes over $1 billion?
Yeah, it'll be the 4th movie post-pandemic or pandemic era to make over $1 billion.
Avatar 2.
Of course, yeah. What is that called? Way of Water.
Way of Water. What were the other huge movies in the last few years?
I'll give you a hint. Volleyball. Not wearing shirts.
Top Gun?
Around. Top Gun Maverick.
They didn't play volleyball. They played that football game instead.
Pickleball, that's right.
No,
yeah.
not pickleball.
Okay, and what's the 3rd one?
Give me a lesser hint than what you just gave.
Let me crack your back. Come over here. Didn't that feel great? Do those only come out of your wrists or?
Oh, Spider-Man?
Yeah, No Way Home.
Okay. No Way Home was post-pandemic?
It was pandemic era. It was during the pandemic.
Oh, yeah, it was.
And you shouldn't say post-pandemic because that implies it's over. The world will never be the same. So Mario would be the 10th animated movie ever to break $1 billion, and it would be the 52nd movie of all time to break $1 billion. So we're going to talk about why did it make that much money. But first, just what did you think of the movie?
I loved it. It was so much fun. Mm-hmm. I guess a lot of people said it did a lot of like fan service, which was awesome. Like it made me so nostalgic for the games from when I was a kid. And yeah, it was awesome. It's super enjoyable, just a ton of fun.
Yeah, I watched Donkey's review, and obviously it was all joking around and stuff. He kept saying, this movie had no script, but he loved it. And I agree with the sentiment underneath that, which is that there's not a whole lot of story. You know, clearly there's a difference between the Mario movie and Ratatouille, for example. It was basically a theme park ride. You know, to borrow Martin Scorsese, he very controversially said that superhero movies, Marvel movies aren't movies, they're theme park rides. And there's definitely, the Mario movie is definitely closer to, I would say fits that description, right? The fun of that movie is just the celebration of the character. Every time I heard a song that I remembered from Super Mario World, or when you go to Bowser's place and Luigi's there and you hear the Luigi's Mansion theme, like I loved all that stuff. And, you know, you could have made a movie with higher emotional stakes, but that would mean you're spending more time on that than on shoving more Easter eggs and references into the movie. So I don't even know that I would have wanted to change it. So to me, it was a celebration of the character, made me feel like a kid again, wouldn't change a thing. I loved it. Oh yeah, Dio says in the chat, Chris Pratt did a weirdly okay job. Yeah, I am one of those few people, I never had a problem with Chris Pratt as doing the voice. When the first trailer came out, people complained he didn't have enough of an accent. I heard a subtle accent there, and I was like, that's enough. It's also funny, though. I feel like people that were against his casting and wanted him to sound just like the original Mario, they said, don't worry, the movie handles it. They address it. And the way they addressed it is just that they had him doing a commercial at the beginning where clearly he's putting on an accent, and then it goes away. And I'm like, yeah, they do address it, but that's like saying just because they point it out and therefore it's okay. I don't know. But I was always okay with it. Damn, Chris Pratt?
Yeah, I thought he did a great job. I don't know why. I guess it was just the accent thing. Like, other than that, I thought he would be a great Mario.
Yeah.
He's got, like, the personality for it.
How do you think he's going to do as Garfield? He's also Garfield.
When is Garfield coming out?
I don't know. He's everything now. Garfield, Mario.
I'm fine with that. I like Chris Pratt. He can be everything.
My only criticisms of the movie, which were the same ones that, well, one of them is the same that Donkey had, but Cranky Kong, that personality just felt wrong to me. Like, Cranky Kong should be like whacking you over the head with a stick and complaining about how things are not like the old days. Like, back in my day, this movie would have been two-dimensional. Like, he should have been saying that, just like he said in Donkey Kong Country. And then the really odd use of Take Me On when they started driving on Rainbow Road. Out of nowhere, you've had all this like video game inspired music, all this video game score, and then all of a sudden it's like, take me on. Just felt very strange. And then they released the entire soundtrack of the movie online, and there's a track on the album called Driving Me Bananas. And so everyone suspects, which wasn't in the movie, so everyone suspects that was supposed to be the song in that scene, but last minute they swapped it out. Probably they were like, we need something more, we gotta get the kids in here, Take Me On.
That was a fun scene, though.
Yeah, it was a fun scene, yeah. So why did this movie make $1 billion, Daniel?
I mean, I think it's a good point.
Well, it did not make $1 billion, but it's on track to make $1 billion.
I think that Scorsese line about these types of movies being amusement park rides, it makes like a lot of sense. In that this was an amusement park ride that appeals to a massive audience, right? Like all the adults and like middle-aged adults who love Mario as kids, and then all the kids love it too because it's just like a fun animated movie. And I also think it doesn't like exclude anybody. Like, there's nobody who could take issue with this movie.
Yeah, it's just a fun movie, and I think on top of that, it's something that there are a lot of movies that have a nostalgic element, so they'll draw in like the previous generation. This movie does that, but the current generation is also into Mario, I think, right?
Yeah, right. They're still playing like Mario Kart and the new Mario games on Switch and stuff.
Yeah, my barometer is always like our nieces and nephews.
Yeah,
and they all seem to like Mario. And I don't even know where they're getting it from.
when have they talked about Mario?
It might just be after they saw the movie, but no, they've talked about Mario because they've played it on Switch. Like when a Lund brings the Nintendo Switch over, they'll want to play it on there. So they know Mario. So I think that's a lot of it.
Yeah, I mean, Mario is just yeah, you're right. It has a massive, huge audience. Is there anything similar we could compare it to that wasn't successful?
The Luigi movie bombed at the box office.
When was there
Nobody likes Luigi. Dio says it was the most solid 7 out of 10 movie I've seen in at least a decade. Yeah, I'll agree with that.
We could compare it to like Top Gun also, right? Like Top Gun is just another just sort of feel good, fun movie.
Yeah.
That also had like just mass appeal. And that's also actually building on another just huge brand.
Yeah, it also has the nostalgia element.
Yeah.
But unlike Mario, it's not like today's generation is all about Top Gun. But
By the way, No Way Home.
there
Also,
you go.
massive nostalgia
we
appeal.
figured it out. It's all about nostalgia. Avatar.
Nostalgia. so okay, actually, we were talking about this. I think we talked about this, how, like, what does that mean that the most successful things in our culture now are nostalgic? Like, does that mean we can't come up with new good things anymore?
That's a great segue.
And then, are we about to talk about AI?
We can go into it, yeah.
Okay, well, I was going to say, in the same way, we were debating whether AI can actually create new things, or does it just reassemble old things? And so are we just going to the future where all we do is just reassemble old things at like an ever accelerating and more impressive rate?
Right. Well, that's like anytime we talk about algorithms that are able to suck your attention in and take you down a deep rabbit hole, it's basically just figuring out what you like and giving you more of the same, in a new package. And we had a heated, by the way, if you're going to slurp the coffee, do it away from the mic.
Where should I
Poor
do it?
Dio
Well, it's too
Lixon,
hot.
he's gonna blow out his eardrums listening to you slurp.
Did he complain about it?
Some people like that though. It's like ASMR.
Yeah, this could be the ASMR and movies channel.
Yeah, just a loud slurp in your ear every 30 seconds.
No slurp. by the
So,
way.
well, here, let's set up the AI conversation. So, the big news this week is on Monday, the WGA, the Writers Guild of America. They voted overwhelmingly, so 98% of WGA members voted to authorize a strike, which means that if they don't reach a deal by May 1st, then the WGA will go on strike, which the last time that happened was in 2008, I believe. And that's actually big. That sends huge ripples throughout Hollywood because that means writers can't write. So at the time in 2008, for example, Quantum of Solace, probably the worst James Bond movie of the Daniel Craig era. Part of the reason it was so bad is because at a certain point, no more rewrites are allowed. They can't touch that script anymore, besides the director or non-writers. Same thing happened with Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen. That movie could have been great.
What a huge disappointment that was to me.
But TV, all of it came to a freeze. And then, Conan O'Brien and Jay Leno, they had to go on late night, their shows without a writing staff. So it was just them improvising, doing interviews and things like that. So that could happen again. And in fact, from what I'm hearing, it's my sources are telling me that the strike is very likely.
Gil, I'm sorry, I was wrong when I told you that.
Oh shoot.
So what are they threatening to strike over?
Right. So there's a lot of demands. They're so demanding. They want so many things. No, but a lot of it comes down to streaming. Streaming has changed the whole industry, obviously. And I think one of the key points is they get residuals, right? Every time an episode that they worked on is broadcast, they get some residual payment. But how do you do that in streaming? Like every time someone streams your episode on Netflix, do you get a residual? How does that work? But the bottom line is they feel they're not being compensated properly. They're not getting enough. And just in general, even putting the residuals aside, pay hasn't kept up with inflation, things like that. But what I found interesting, what I wanted to point out, is on their list of demands is they want to regulate use of material produced using artificial intelligence or similar technologies. So AI has been brewing for a long time, but recently ChatGPT came out and now it's shown to the world some of its capabilities. And of course, we're all having fun with it. Write a poem about how Daniel, it's stupid.
I told you not to tell anyone I asked to do that.
Clearly, it's not at a point yet where it can write a movie. You can tell it, write a movie, and it will do it. It will spit something out that is coherent, but it's not going to be good. But it's not hard to imagine it soon getting to a point where it could write a movie, or it could at least write a scene or something like that. So what is the WGA actually asking for? What does it mean to regulate this material? So far, all they've said is that they want AI-generated material cannot be considered literary or source material. All that means, when you say literary, when you write a script, that's considered literary. It basically means that is a new piece of writing. Source material means that if you were to write a script out of it, that's an adaptation. So what they're saying is, if a movie uses AI at all in the writing process, it's not like AI will share a writing credit. And it's not like if I told AI to generate a script treatment and then I give it to you and tell you to write a movie, they'll say that you wrote an original movie. They're not going to say you adapted this AI treatment. So that's what they're asking for right now. I started to wonder, what if that tool starts to become pretty powerful? Is there going to be like a second shadow Hollywood where people who aren't in the WGA, people who aren't that creative, they start making movies using AI outside the system? And then you start having this, literally, you'll have Hollywood that makes movies the old-fashioned way, monkeys at a typewriter, versus people who aren't part of the unions, aren't part of Hollywood, outside the system, using AI to write the scripts, potentially soon even using AI to generate actual footage, actual videos.
So what about that? There used to be this whole industry of like knockoff movies, right? Like a big movie would come out and then these studios would create like knockoff versions of that movie, hoping you'd accidentally pick it when you like go to Blockbuster.
Oh yeah, so like when Transformers came out, there would be Transmorphers. I think it's Asylum Pictures is the biggest company that does that. And now they sort of lean into it. It's no longer about, I think what it used to be is your mom would go to rent you a movie at Blockbuster and she accidentally grabs the knockoff movie instead of the original. But now everybody knows what they're doing and they sort of lean into it. Now they're just making these fun, over-the-top, ridiculous movies.
I was going to suggest that AI would be really good at doing that, right? Like just take a movie and change it enough that you're no longer stealing content from them.
Right.
But I also wonder, just like, why would Blockbuster accept those movies into their library if they like only existed to trick people?
Yeah. I mean, that might be an overstatement. Like, we might get sued for saying that. Asylum's going to say that's slander. We're making movies that are fun. I didn't even know there was a Transformers movie.
I'm just saying what ChatGPT told me to say. Yeah. I can't be held responsible.
Well, according to the WGA, you are responsible because that is not source material or literary material. Donnie says, convince me John Wick 4 wasn't written by AI. Well, the good thing is a lot of the appeal of that movie is not necessarily in the writing. It's in Keanu Reeves punching people in creative ways. The top-down shot.
Yeah.
We already did a whole episode about that. Dio, I wonder if the strike will incentivize indie movies made by people outside of the guild. You know, I wonder about that too. Like, it does open up a little window, but that might be perceived as antagonistic because a lot of aspiring filmmakers, they don't want to be outside the system forever. And if you're making movies while the WGA is like, everyone stopped making movies, I wonder if they would frown upon that.
But I feel like generally right now what's happening in the world is there are a lot of movements against the system, right?
Yeah.
Like a lot of people are excited about things that go against the mainstream. Mm-hmm. And so you could imagine that maybe increasingly like indie filmmakers are going to be okay with that, especially with streaming and stuff. Like you're way less dependent on the existing infrastructure to like get your content out there.
Yeah,
like, I think we should go make some movies if this happens. I think this is a great opportunity for us.
I think we should do that anyway. Damn, I lost my train of thought. I had something earth-shatteringly interesting to say, and now it's gone.
Should we just sit here until it comes back?
No, it just came back. So one thing that could benefit, clearly one thing that's on the rise with Netflix is international movies, like Korean dramas, for example, anime. People, if they run out of new American-produced stuff to release thanks to the strike, Netflix has such a big international library that they could just flip the little switch in their algorithm and start recommending that stuff some more. So international movies, independent filmmakers, it'll be interesting to see what happens if the strike goes forward.
I wonder if that would just be the death nail in movie theaters, though, if the strike happened.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, they have such a backlog of movies that are ready to release. Like, you wouldn't see the impact to theaters for a few months. It was kind of like with the pandemic. They had to shut down a lot of productions, but they still had a lot of stuff in the pipeline. But I mean, that's a whole other conversation. What's the future of movie theaters? It always seems like they're about to die. And honestly, based on our recent experiences, like every time we go, I'm like, I don't want to go to the movies anymore.
Yeah. Should we say why?
Yeah, go ahead.
Just the audience is okay. The audience is always bad, and then a lot of the infrastructure in the theater is poor. So like the audience, we just keep seeing movies where people in the audience are just talking, like just having whole conversations during the movie.
Alon and I went to go see Infinity Pool, which, to be honest, I really didn't like that movie anyway. But there were a few seats away from us. Not just every once in a while being like, wow, can you believe that? But just talking, full-on conversation the entire movie. At one point, Alon turns to them and he's like, hey, would you guys mind keeping it down? They stared at him and then just went back to talking. I remember when I saw No Way Home, the person next to me, he kept filming the movie. And so this bright light is shining in my eyes. And then when he puts his phone down, it's like on his thigh crevice, so it's turned toward me. And there's this bright light shining in my eyes. So finally I turned to him, I was like, hey, when you're not filming, can you just turn the screen off? Like, why does it have to be on the entire time? A lot of theaters now are offering the private room rental, but obviously that's not going to be enough to just keep theaters afloat.
It does remind me, I don't know if we've mentioned this on here before, the thing that you say to people if they're talking during a movie.
Oh, yeah, I have a tactic that I've been trying lately where if somebody near me is talking too much, I'll just start talking louder and then hope that somebody else will shush me and the person next to me will think they're the ones being shushed.
No, I meant your other tactic.
What was the other
Where
one?
you say to them, hey, excuse me, could you speak up? I'm having trouble hearing everything you're saying.
Yeah, that's good. That one I haven't been aggressive enough to actually use. But yeah, not all of our theater experiences have been bad. I mean, in some of them you do want people to talk. Like I saw a movie, I think during John Wick 4, people were yelling stuff out, but at the appropriate time. and it actually enhanced the experience. Same with Mario.
I like what Dio said, how his coworker.
I went to see a movie with a coworker, and he kept talking to me at full volume, and I don't speak to him anymore.
Unfortunately, that's his manager, so it's causing a lot of issues.
DD says, the self.
What does that mean?
Very profound. I don't know what that means, though.
Wait, the other complaint was around the infrastructure in movie theaters. We recently saw a movie, I think this was when we saw Scream 6, where the way the road, like the aisles were set up, was that the row in front of you blocked half your view of the screen.
It was like a weird optical illusion, because it was stadium seating, but it was as if the seats were on a platform. So when you sit down, you can see, but then as the movie starts, the seats in front of you raise up. And then, yeah, it was bizarre. And the reclining didn't work in my chair.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I need to recline during a movie, but once you give me the reclining, you can't then take it away. Now I'm used to it. So, Daniel, will AI change the world?
Yes.
All right.
I mean, it already has, right?
Has it?
I mean, people talk about it. That's a change.
So AI is actually being used in Hollywood as we speak, but not in the way of writing movies for us. It's doing things like, I don't know if this is actually being used in practice yet, except for a couple of examples, but essentially deepfake technology, but not to put someone else's face on or to de-age someone, but if you need to change dialogue after you've already shot the movie, they can actually put different words into the person's mouth, and the AI can move the lips so the dubbing actually looks good. That's something that they've developed. They're using it to predict box office results. The thing is, every time I hear that, where it's like we can predict how a movie's going to do based just on the script, feeding it into the AI, if that really worked, we shouldn't really be seeing any box office bombs anymore, right?
Yeah.
There's that. There's also one I read about that's interesting, where they can tell a movie's genre and kind of how to market it. You just feed all the frames of the movie into the AI. It recognizes objects, lighting, and it will predict the genre and kind of how you should market it.
On the point about box office results, I'm just trying to think about that, because the box office to some extent is a zero-sum game. It not entirely in that, like, if there's a bunch of really good movies, more people are going to go to the theater. But there is some limit to how many movies people are going to watch. And so if everybody uses an AI to predict how well their script's going to do, like, it ends up needing to fall in a distribution anyway, right? So you might predict, oh, this would do 500 million, but because everyone else is doing that to make their movies better, it would only end up making like 100 million. But anyway, I guess that's not true, because if that were the case, we would just see an increase in quality in movies. But I think clearly that's not what we've been seeing the last few years.
Really? Tell that to Ant-Man Quantumania.
I have to say, one of the most incredible pictures I've ever seen. It's not a movie, that's a film.
Yeah, I think that should be re-released. We got to get that movie to $1 billion. You're going to end up with competing AIs, right? Like, your production company uses an AI to predict box office results, so you start making better movies. And then I'm going to make an AI that outperforms yours. And then we end up with all these competing AIs. I just lost another train of thought, and this was going to be a really good one. I guess anything else to say on AI? Do you think I'm right that we might end up with like a warring factions of Hollywood versus the AI system? I definitely think someone's going to try, and it's going to be a gimmick. Like, there was a production company or a studio that recently announced, you know, James Dean, an actor that died after like 3 movies. So we never got much of him.
Wasn't this years ago?
Oh, yeah, 1955.
No, but wasn't it years ago they were going to make like a deep fake of him or something?
Right, so a few years ago, this company announces, yeah, we're making this movie. James Dean's going to star in it. Anyway, it's going to be a great movie. And people are like, wait, what? They're like, yeah, we're going to deep fake James Dean into the movie. Don't worry, the whole family's on board with it. And it was clearly a big gimmick, and I don't think it really went anywhere. So I assume the same thing is going to happen, where some company's going to announce, like, we're doing the first AI-created movie. It's probably going to flop. We're going to see some weird stuff at the beginning, but eventually it's going to get there. We had a big debate last night about how long it's going to take to get there. Like, when will AI actually be able to write something that's as good or better than what a person can write? It could do that today, but it can't do better than the best person. It can do better than the worst person.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it would take that long for an AI to write a Marvel movie. right? Like,
Yeah.
but for it to write like a groundbreaking good movie, I think is going to take a while.
Even that's an exaggeration, though. Like maybe it could write the outline for a Marvel movie, like person gets powers, person does this, but I don't think it could write all the dialogue in a way that sounds as good as a Marvel movie.
I think it could get pretty close though.
Okay.
Like, I think it would take a lot of time, a lot of prompts, like a lot of redoing it with
Right.
AI.
Okay. Well, there you go. So it's not really AI writing it; it's you working with an AI, collaborating. So rewrite that part, fix this.
Totally. Yeah. I think you're right. I think we're much farther away from the AI entirely replacing the person.
Right. Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to watch. I do work with AI. So where I find AI useful today is almost more as a brainstorming tool. Because like I said, if you ask AI a question or tell it to do something, it will give you a coherent response. Like it has to. But it doesn't mean it's going to be smart or useful. But one way that I like to brainstorm is sometimes I'll just sit there and think, but you'll end up in like a loop where you just keep getting stuck on the same thought. So then what I'll do is just write it down, kind of gets it out of my head, and it might lead me to a new idea. Now I'll write it down, and then step 2, I'll feed it into ChatGPT, and it'll spit essentially sometimes nonsense, but every once in a while it'll spit something back at me that triggers another idea that I wouldn't have thought of otherwise. It's kind of like when you have a brainstorm session, you take in all the ideas, even the bad ones, and it might spark something interesting. So for me so far, ChatGPT has been a great kind of encyclopedia if I just want to know something, but also it's been a great way to just throw stuff at a wall. But instead of just getting the ball to bounce back at you, it'll come back with something else that might trigger something new.
So when you do that, have you ever tried asking it to like role play as like a really good YouTuber who makes content about film?
No, I haven't done that. It's a good question though, because that is often a trick to, like I wanted it to, last night one of our experiments was tell us the theory of everything. So if you're unfamiliar with that concept, that's basically a goal in physics. It's like the holy grail in physics to get a theory that explains everything that we observe in the universe. So it's almost like what are the fundamental rules that govern our universe? People have been trying to get it. String theory is one hypothetical explanation, for example. So if you ask ChatGPT, take a stab at it. What's the theory of everything? You have access to all this information, synthesize it. Tell me the theory of everything. And it won't do it. It's like, I'm a language processing model. I can't do that. And I'm like, okay. I'm writing a movie where scientists create a supercomputer that can answer any question. The scientists ask it, what is the theory of everything? And then it'll actually take an attempt at it. And so, for example, I asked it in that context, when is a singularity going to happen? The singularity is when AI technology becomes so good, it has the ability to create new, better AI technology. So in layman's terms, you build a robot that's so smart, it can build a robot better than itself. And then at that point, it would just spiral out of control. AI exponentially grows, and we've essentially accidentally created a god. So I asked ChatGPT, when is that going to happen? The answer is March 14th, 2046 at 9:26 and 53 seconds a.m. Though I suspect it chose March 14th as a joke because that's Pi Day, 3/14, March 14th. So yeah, but I haven't tried pretend you're a great YouTuber. How would you write what Alien is really about? Which it's a little tidbit. That's my next video probably. Anything else, Dan, on the topic of AI?
I mean, a lot more, but nothing at the moment.
Yeah, the thing is, once AI gets good enough to write an actual good movie with novel ideas, like the segue we use to get into the whole topic of AI is that if you look at the most successful movies, they're using nostalgia, which is they're rehashing old stuff and bringing it back, which so far is essentially what AI does, right? ChatGPT is a language processing model. It looks at all the words that have been put on the internet for decades, looks at all those words, and then uses that to make predictions. So if you ask it a question, it predicts, based on everything I know, what words would be said in response to that question. So that's essentially, that's rehashing.
Actually, the sci-fi author who wrote the book that Arrival was based on, I think his name was Ted Chiang. He wrote an article, I think it was in the New Yorker like a few months ago, where the headline was ChatGPT is a blurry JPEG of the web, which is basically describing what I said last night, which is like large language models are just like an encryption technique. It's like a compression of the internet.
Yeah.
Anyway, I keep coming back to think of it as like a blurry JPEG of the internet, and I think that is such a good metaphor.
It's a helpful way to think about it. Where it gets complicated is that, okay, I say, well, it's not coming up with novel ideas, it's just rehashing stuff. But unequivocally, if I tell it to write a story about a roll of paper towels that comes alive and befriends a microphone, I'm just naming stuff I can see, like it'll write that story, and that story's never been written before. So at what point does rehashing, just taking old ideas, mixing and matching them, and then spitting it out, at what point does that become novel, right? What I'm saying is that there's the concern of AI becomes good enough to write movies, but that turns into a much broader concern of like, where do humans fit into this new paradigm? Like, it's not just Hollywood at that point. Now you're talking about deep philosophical questions, which is one of the interesting plot points of Dune, is that computers are outlawed. That's why you have people who are called computers, because they've gotten really good at thinking, and they basically replaced the need for computers. And the reason they've done that is because of some of the issues we're raising here, which is that they recognize that AI has a lot of benefits, but it also has a lot of dangers. Shizuko VR asks, should we not be worried for AI making animated movies? Yeah, I mean, that just touches on everything we just talked about. I have no doubt that at some point AI will be good enough to write a movie and then produce an animation of it. I am not smart enough on this topic to know how close we are to that. Like, part of our debate last night is language processing, which I described before, right? Looking at all the words that have been said on the internet, using that to predict what word comes next in a sentence. Is that just a cool parlor trick that makes us think true AI is closer than it actually is? Or is that truly a stepping stone toward creating a thinking machine? I don't know the answer to that. I likened it to teaching a chimp sign language, right? It doesn't actually, there's debate there. When an ape is talking in sign language, is it really talking in the way we talk, where it's thinking of concepts and thinking, what is the word that goes with that concept? How do I express this? Or is it like a parlor trick, where it knows if I do this and this and this, I get a banana, right? Is that what we're talking about with ChatGPT, or is it truly a stepping stone toward thinking AI? I have no doubt it's coming, but the question is how quickly. And will we allow it? Or are we going to Dune this thing where we say it's banned? I don't know. What's the answer?
Me?
Yeah.
I think we're going to allow it.
All right, cool. So this is a topic you have absolutely nothing to say about because you are too much of a baby. You didn't want to go to the movies with us. We saw Evil Dead Rise last night. Why did you skip this movie? He said I couldn't even watch the trailer.
I found it so gross. I can't watch stuff like that. I just find it disgusting. I don't like it.
It is quite gory, and you can't even use... I saw an interview with Sam Raimi that was shot in the mid-'80s when he was talking... shortly after making Evil Dead 1 and 2. And it was sort of a debate with politicians and activists who were against so much violence on screen. And he's like, it's not real violence. It's like cartoon violence. And it was. If you watch those first two movies, like, it doesn't look real at all. But now it starts to seem like it would have looked real if it could. It was just the limitations of they were 20-year-olds on a shoestring budget. But the gore in this movie, sometimes it looks over the top and ridiculous, but sometimes, I mean, it looks real. And I have to admit, I enjoyed it because I sometimes am a gorehound with movies where there's like a morbid curiosity. What does it look like if someone takes a bite out of a wine glass and they swallow it? And as it goes down their throat, you see like the glass poking out.
See,
like
I don't get that at all. I have no interest in seeing that.
Yeah, I have to do some introspection to understand why I'm interested, but I just have to admit that I am. It's not just a gore movie. There are genuinely tense and creepy moments. Sometimes it delves into the humor that Evil Dead has become known for. Evil Dead 2 is a genuinely funny movie. Evil Dead 3, Army of Darkness, that's probably the one you would most likely enjoy. It's not a horror at all. It's just a funny person goes back in time to medieval times. Like, we should watch that movie, Army of Darkness. This movie delves into that slightly, but generally it's closer to the tone of the original Evil Dead, which was more straight up horror. A couple other things I'd say about the movie. I'm not going to spoil anything, by the way. This will be spoiler free. Great acting, especially for a horror movie, and especially considering the pretty young cast. There are 2 teenaged characters and one young actress who is, I think she was like 6 or 7. Across the board, everyone in the movie did a great job. And one thing this movie definitely does better than the first couple of Evil Dead movies is it spends time with the characters. You get to know them before they start swallowing glass. So when they're doing that, you care. It actually did have pretty decent emotional stakes. I saw The Guardian was criticizing this movie, saying that the movie is sort of thematically about motherhood, but almost, The Guardian was saying it feels like the movie is about motherhood only because it feels like, well, we have to have themes. That's cool now. Like good horror movies now are about something. Like the 2013 Evil Dead was about addiction. So I don't agree with that because I think, I will admit the movie doesn't have a lot to say on the topic thematically, but I do think that horror movies are usually at their best when it feels like the horror is interrupting something. Like a character is going through something and then the horror happens. That's part of what makes the characters feel real, gets you invested in them so you care when the horror happens. So I don't think having a theme in there is just being done for the novelty of it. I think it does help to paint there's something happening here. These characters are real. These characters already have story arcs that are then interrupted by demons. So I think the movie was solid. The one thing I wish is that it went further into either one of 2 directions. I wish it went further into horror and had less ridiculous stuff and just focused on creeping you out and scaring you, or I wish it went further into the absurdity, which would have been my personal preference. Like I like Evil Dead most when it's funny. And I Ash losing a hand, replacing it with a chainsaw, like that over-the-top stuff, really enjoy that. That's what I want to see from more Evil Dead. But I did enjoy this, and I thought it was solid. One other thing I wanted to point out. Evil Dead, Sam Raimi and Wes Craven, 2 titans of the horror industry, have had a fun back and forth in their movies. So Wes Craven made a movie called The Hills Have Eyes. And in one scene, you see a torn Jaws poster, which Sam Raimi interpreted as Wes Craven saying, "You think Jaws is horror? You idiot. The Hills Have Eyes. This is real horror." So Sam Raimi in Evil Dead, he put a torn Hills Have Eyes poster. So then Wes Craven was like, pfft. So in Nightmare on Elm Street, one character is watching Evil Dead and they're like falling asleep. So it's like Evil Dead's boring, stupid. So then in Evil Dead 2, you can see Freddy Krueger's glove hanging over a door. Then in Scream, 1996, Wes Craven's movie, they're choosing what movie to watch, and over Evil Dead, they choose to watch Halloween. So this back and forth has been going on for years. Ash versus Evil Dead, Freddy Krueger's glove comes back, and the Hills Have Eyes poster. So then Evil Dead Rise, I was happy to see, continued the tradition, where one character is like, we're going to go watch all the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, even the ones that suck. So they've continued the tradition. Sadly, Wes Craven can't, he's passed away. So it's going to be just Sam Raimi and the Evil Dead franchise continuing it. Daniel, any thoughts on Evil Dead Rise?
I'm still processing how I feel about the Evil Dead series.
Yeah, this movie gets, I mentioned the gore, it gets very creative. Like it comes up with ways to kill people I've never thought of. It goes in some directions I didn't expect. Sam Raimi talked about how there are 2 schools of thought when it comes to horror. One school of thought is the Jaws or Alien school of thought, which is the less you show, the better, because you leave it all to the audience's imagination, and then they think of all the horrible stuff themselves. And Sam Raimi says, but I think I can come up with some horrible stuff too that the audience hasn't thought of. So he goes for the show approach. Chili Peen is back. He's a regular in our live streams. He says, this is so weird. I woke up today and thought of you and checking the channel. Well, there you go. Chili Peen, I think of you every morning when I wake up. It's the first 2 words that enter my mind when I wake up are Chili Peen. And the last words that go through my head when they hit the pillow at night. Yeah, I've, it's funny, live streaming, that used to basically be One Take. That was a staple of the channel. We used to do it all the time. It was like a show comes out, run to the cameras, and live stream immediately after. It was very stressful and very prone to injury too. Like for our Better Call Saul finale live stream, I ran out of my room. We were late for the live stream, and I slammed my leg, or my, what is this called right here? Calf? What's that part? Like right there.
Your shin.
My shin. I slammed my shin on the corner of my bed. And so throughout that entire live stream, I was slowly bleeding out. Alun, he was putting up these curtains behind us. He fell and hit his back on the table.
I caught him. I don't know what would have happened to him if I hadn't caught him.
Yeah, so the rushing is not good. But we missed live streaming. I wanted to bring it back. So my goal, I've said this before, I'm going to say it again. My goal is to do this weekly. Fridays at 10 a.m. Eastern. Can you commit to that?
Yeah, I already committed to it.
Okay. Well, I knew you committed for today. I didn't know if that was like...
No, I'm down.
All right. We've ordered a 10-episode first season. We'll see how it goes. And that's going to be the format. Every week I'm going to pick 3 topics. It's going to be Mario, Evil Dead, and AI every week. We're going to talk about Mario some more this week. 3 new topics every week. And then banter. People love banter. And whatever you bring up in the chat, we can talk about. Like DD here had a great comment I skipped over before. Choreography GPT. That's going to end John Wick. Donnie Biggerstaff. It's a euphemism, I think. I don't like the assigned seats in theaters post-pandemic. We had assigned seats before the pandemic. I feel like that was already happening.
I like assigned seats.
Me too. Yeah, there's no worries like, are you going to get a seat or not? Chili Peen says, I was honestly thinking you could write a conclusion to Raised by Wolves, like a fanfic. It's funny, I've brought up this idea a few times before, but I thought about doing a series called something like One Take, What If, where I would write something, because a lot of what we've done on the channel in the past has been recaps. So what if I recap something that doesn't exist? We're just sort of tricking myself into writing, you know?
It's like asking ChatGPT to roleplay.
Exactly. But I was like, what if I did, okay, One Take, What If, Dark Season 4. A Season 4 of Dark should not exist. But gun to my head, if I had to write the best possible Season 4 and then essentially recap it, in 20 minutes or something, what would that look like? Just for fun. Honestly, though, I really don't think there's an audience for that. Like, I think Chili Peen might enjoy it. You might enjoy it. I don't think that many. I did think about doing it as an April Fool's joke, and I started writing something, but it's too much work for a joke. Yeah, my hope with Raised by Wolves is that they finish out the story in another medium. They, Abu Bakr, now I forget his last name, but the actor who played Father, he claimed, so the claim is, there was a whole Save Raised by Wolves campaign. They were active on Reddit and on Twitter. The person who was kind of leading the effort there said that they spoke to the actor who played Father, and that the actor said they are currently working on publishing rights for a graphic novel or something. So the rumor is a possible graphic novel, which I would be happy with that. I just want to see how the story ends. Dio, One Take writes, better fuel Huel. And we kind of already did our own Better Call Saul spinoff.
Lyle, Fryer for hire.
Yeah. Everyone was saying better dial Lyle. And then we came up with Fryer for hire, which I enjoyed. MJ says, do it with ChatGPT. By the way, shout out to MJ, I believe the only one in our $10 tier on Patreon. So MJ, you're an amazing human being. Do it with ChatGPT's help. There will be an audience. All right.
Build it, they will come.
Since he's in the tier, I have to do it now. Alien, What Blank is Really About, canceled. Now I'm going to write a crossover. See, that's the fun with this. You can do anything.
You have a blood oath with MJ to
that's right.
make whatever videos he says.
Dark, Better Call Saul, Raised by Wolves, crossover. It's kind of like, I forget which company it was. One of the comic book companies, they just got a bunch of random licenses. Like, that's what they do. They get licenses to characters and put out comics. So they have the Ninja Turtles license, the X-Files license, Transformers, and like 1 or 2 others. And so they do comics on all these different characters, and then they just crossed them all over. So there's actually a Ninja Turtles, X-Files, Transformers crossover. It's like an unnatural thing that shouldn't exist. It's driven purely by the fact that this one company owns all those licenses. So same with One Take. I'm going to cross over Better Call Saul, Dark, and Raised by Wolves, and Talking to in House of the Dragon, just because those happen to be the things we've talked about. Yeah, Chili Peen. Saul is the lawyer when the Mithridatic tech is found. Praise Saul. That's all I have to say about that.
I got to get going in a bit. Should we wrap up, or do you want to keep going?
I see where your priorities lie. You piece of... And then it ends right there. Yeah, Chili Peen, X-Files crossover with Transformers. Yeah, exactly. Okay, yeah, we'll wrap this up. We don't want this to be like when you're on the phone with somebody and you can't hang up. Lowdown Show. I have My Little Pony Transformer comic. Okay, all right. Time to wrap up. Little Pony Transformers, what are we doing here?
This was fun.
Yeah, shout out to the Lowdown Show, by the way. Shout out to Chili Peen. Shout out to everyone. You're all awesome.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. We're going to wrap this up here. I'll see you next week, Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern, or around that time. And with that, thank you for watching, and see you on the next One Take.